Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Problem Solver Garage. In today's episode, we will be starting a motor after 20 years. I'll show you the whole process starting now. Behind me is a 1969 Corvette Stingray with a Chevy 350 engine. This car has not been started in over 20 years. The motor hasn't even been turned over. In today's episode, we're going to strictly focus on prepping the motor for a first startup in over 20 years. Hasn't even been turned over, not even one time at any point whatsoever. Okay, let's not waste any time here and get started right away. So the absolute first thing we're going to do is go underneath the car. So there's the front of the car. So right underneath here is your oil filter, which we're going to remove. But first, right underneath here, we're gonna drain all the oil. Let's get that going first. Okay, let's get this drain plug out and take all this oil out. Okay, and then we quickly take the filter off. All right, we got the filter off. So inside of there, you just wanna make sure your gasket's not left there from your filter. Give that a little wipe, and that's ready. Okay, so yes, normally you would start the car, warm up the oil, and drain it when it's hot. But this is different. This isn't an oil change. This is prepping for starting of the motor. Let me explain to you why we're doing things the way we're doing them. So basically, the oil in this car, if you really think about it, is over 20 years old. Do you really want 20-year-old oil circulating through your engine? You don't, trust me. Basically, gravity took that oil all the way down to the bottom. There's no oil on the sides of the pistons. There's no oil on anything. It's all at the bottom of the engine. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna take advantage of that, and we're just gonna drain all the oil and put brand new oil in. So that way, when we do crank the engine, the first blast of oil that it gets is gonna be nice, clean oil, not 20-something-year-old oil that's been sitting in there with humidity and moisture year after year after year. So there's definitely a few more steps before we can turn the key. One of the things we did is we changed all the fuel. We took all the old gasoline out, put new gasoline in, Supreme gasoline, 91 octane with the octane booster. Every Corvette 1970 and prior needs that type of gas. My first episode on this Corvette is actually changing the gas, so there'll be a link below. All right, let's get back to the oil change. Okay, so this car requires 5W30 in the winter time and summertime 10W30. So that's what you use for oil. Our engine has been rebuilt, so for the rest of its life, this also has to go in it. As long as you don't have a Cadillac converter in older cars, this is great stuff, guys. Maybe you should Google it and decide if you want to put it in. But if your engine was rebuilt and it doesn't have a Cadillac converter on it, you should be putting this in it for the rest of its life. Okay, back to business. So this is the oil filter you need, PH30. So all Chevy 350s require 5 quarts of motor oil when you change your filter. 5 quarts, which is 4.73 liters of motor oil. So if you're putting this in, you have to calculate it all out. So altogether, you're getting 4.73 liters. All right, so we just got a 1 liter jug here, and we're just gonna fill this the appropriate amount of times. So first we'll put some of this. It is very much liquidier normally, but it's cold in here right now. The heater's just kicking in. So we'll put some of that, and then we'll top it up with our engine oil. Okay, so we got 1 liter in here. Let's mix it up. And I mean, you are putting in this whole entire thing. We just, for the first initial blast of oil that the car is gonna get, we wanna mix it up in here. Because the one thing we're doing differently is we're gonna fill up this filter with motor oil. So that way, when we crank it, this doesn't have to fill up with oil before it starts getting oil into the motor. This will buy it a couple less revolutions and it'll get oil faster. Kind of like how you change a filter in a diesel engine. We're gonna do that. And there we go. And see, this way, it's got the zinc in the oil for the first initial start too. So you just fill it right up to the rim. Okay, we got this thing nice and full, and you just take your finger and you put some oil on the O-ring just so it goes on nice. Okay, let's go put this on. Okay, there we go. And I mean, I do realize that on some engines, if the filter's like sideways or something, you wouldn't be able to do that. But on the Chevy 350, that helps a lot. I actually recommend doing this every time you change the oil. It gives it a few seconds where it would normally run with no oil. It just speeds up that process. So you put that basically hand tight. And once it's running, we're gonna check for leaks there. Okay, we cleaned the plug super good. Let's put it in. All right, tight, but not too tight. All right, we got that all done. Let's fill it up with the right amount of oil now, including that Lucas zinc additive. All right, 4.73 liters. We gotta calculate it out. Including this stuff, 4.73 liters combined. All right, and there we go. And for the last one, we're gonna put about 100 milliliters less, which is just a very small amount less, and I'll show you why. All right, so we got nice, fresh, clean oil with the zinc additive. I mean, we got mwah, it's ready. So now we got 3 more steps before we can turn the key. Step number 1, we are going to remove all the spark plugs right now, and we're gonna label all the wires to the according cylinder so we don't mess that up. Once we got all the plugs out, we're gonna take a nice little syringe like this, super spotless clean, and we're gonna put a little bit of oil into each actual cylinder. We're gonna go psh, 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 psh. We're gonna squirt oil in there. And the reason we're doing that is because you gotta realize 20 years of sitting. So the piston rings are completely dry. There's gonna be, from summer, winter, there's moisture in there. There's probably rust inside of the cylinder walls. So what you wanna do is, you don't wanna just crank the key and it goes up and down a few times before oil gets back in there. You wanna grease all that up nice, and we're gonna turn the engine by hand a few revolutions to get everything nice and greased up. Then we'll put the plugs back in, then we'll fire it up. Yeah, smoke's gonna go out the back like crazy, and it might take a little bit longer to start. But either way, as the engine's spinning around, the pump will pump the oil to everything, and our cylinder walls will be covered in oil. The pistons will be covered in oil. That's how you do it. I always see guys just, cars sitting for 20, 30 years, they just crank the key and see what happens. It's like, oh my God, now you're gonna have to rebuild your engine because you're probably damaging, your pistons and your cylinder walls. This is the way to do it. All right, we got the plugs out. We got everything labeled so we know where everything goes back. So just showing you guys inside there. So there is our holes for the spark plugs. And as you can see, our motor is super duper clean. If you had a whole bunch of crap on there, you would want to get a shop vac and clean those out. But as you can see, ours is nice and clean. All right, so we got our oil here. So we're gonna just shoot a little bit into each cylinder. Like this should be enough to do all the cylinders, no problem. There'll even be some left. It's just one little squirt. All right. And that's that. Just a little bit in each one. All right, I'm gonna do that to all 8 cylinders right now, and I'll show you what's next. And if you're having a hard time getting to stuff, the trick is to do it from underneath. Look at the super good access from underneath here. All right, so we got the cylinders. There's oil inside every single one. What we're gonna do next now is we're gonna take a shop vac, and we're gonna shop vac all around the valve covers really, really good. And we're actually gonna pull both these valve covers off. So I'm gonna get started on that. Once I got them off, I'll show you what's next. Okay, we got the cover off. So I mean, as you can see, like I said, there's no oil there. It all dripped down, like there's nothing. So what we're gonna do now is inside of here, we are going to take our syringe and we're just gonna shoot some oil down those. And right in the springs there just to grease this up, and up here, just all the moving parts. We're just gonna put some oil on them and then put the cover back on. All right, so we got the valve covers back on. We still have the spark plugs out. We're gonna put a 5/8 on the front of the motor here. And this is gonna be the first turnover in 20 years. Let's see if she turns over nice. Oh yeah. Good. So you turn it clockwise, and you wanna give it at least one full turn. Make sure there's nothing in one of the cylinders and everything's turning nice and free, which it is. Plus we're moving that oil around. All right. Okay, I'm super happy with that. It's a very, very good sign. So what we're gonna do next is on the distributor, right here. This isn't the original distributor, it's been upgraded. If you had an original one, just disconnect your wire from your ignition coil. So we're gonna take this plug here and we're gonna unplug it so the distributor has no power going to it. Just like that. Remember where that goes? It goes on that side. The other side is for the tach meter. What we're gonna do now is hook up the battery, and we're actually gonna turn the key and let it spin a few times, but we don't want it starting. The plugs are still out. We're just gonna blow all the excess oil out of the cylinders and just get it spinning a few times, get the oil pump to pump the oil through. And after that, we're gonna be putting the plugs back in and we're gonna be starting it. All right, we're ready to turn it over. The battery's hooked up, everything's good. You wanna look in there, make sure there's no crap in there, nothing. Double check everything. Make sure the car's in neutral or in park. And let's go turn the key. All right, we got our fire extinguisher ready. Let's say a little prayer and see if she turns over. All right. Okay, things are looking super good. It's turning over, the key's working, everything's looking good, no shorts. I even noticed it's getting fuel. So this fuel filter was completely empty. See, it's getting fuel now. So we're gonna put the plugs back in, hook up all the wires, and I think she's gonna start. Okay, so all the spark plugs pretty much look like that. For now, we're just gonna put these ones back in, run it a few times, and then we might change them to new ones. So let's get started on that. Okay, everybody, here comes the moment of truth. Everything's hooked up, spark plugs are in, wires are hooked up. This wire is hooked back up. I mean, this thing should start. We're gonna put a little bit of gasoline down into the carbs here, just like that. All right, first start in 20 years. The car's in park, got my foot on the brake, gas in the carb. Let's turn the key. All right, a little bit more. All right, so it doesn't seem to be getting fuel. See what I mean? I'm gonna try a few more times, and if this thing doesn't start filling, then we're gonna have to change the fuel pump, which is a mechanical fuel pump, which is right there on the side of the motor. So, after sitting for 20 years, maybe the diaphragm inside of it or some part of it isn't pulling gas. We'll try a few more times though. All right, so it wants to start. You guys have heard it. It's definitely not getting fuel. This thing here is not getting any fuller. So we're gonna go get a new fuel pump for it, and we're gonna put the fuel pump on, and don't worry,
because I'm gonna fast forward to the moment we have it.
the fuel pump is here. Let's go. Excellent. All right, guys, so the fuel pump has arrived. We actually ended up ordering the fuel pump from Rock Auto. Great place. Rock Auto, check it out. All right, guys, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put this fuel pump on and we're gonna get back to trying to start this motor. And what I'm gonna do is the next episode is gonna be how to test your fuel pump and how to install a new mechanical fuel pump. So make sure you tune into the next episode. Otherwise, this episode would be too long. Let's get this girl started. I'm gonna fast forward about 2 hours.
Right now until the fuel pump is installed.
All right, and just like that, 2 hours went by, basically even 3. Check out the new fuel pump. So there it is, looking nice. So like I said, guys, the next episode will be how to install a fuel pump correctly episode. So make sure you tune in. There'll be a link below, and there'll be a link to all my episodes of restoring this car right from day one. So make sure you tune in. All right, let's get started, everybody. Well, guys, I mean, it's running, which is a great sign. I see fuel coming out all over here, though. We're going to tighten these up a little bit and tighten this, and we're going to try again. Okay, guys, so we tightened some of the bolts here. A lot of stuff was super loose. Like, this is all temporary. We're obviously going to have a carburetor episode still. And also, these vacuum hoses here, there's no vacuum on them. They're all, like, old, and see, there's nothing holding them. So we're just going to cap these off for now. This one's okay for the brake booster. We're gonna cap these off because I think that's why it's running funny, because it's got a huge vacuum leak. One of these goes to the tranny, so don't drive it with these capped off. But for now, we're just gonna cap both these and let's try starting it. All right, guys, here it goes. It's alive! I mean, it's leaking gas out of the car, but it's alive. Make sure you subscribe.